Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea podcast here on my YouTube channel. My name, of course, is John Campea, and thank you for joining us on this lovely Friday morning. It's warm outside here in Burbank, California. By the way, my apologies. You might hear a little bit of noise in the background, a little bit of air rushing. Normally, when I do the show, I turn the air conditioning off. Little bit warm here today to turn the air conditioning off, so my apologies if there's a little bit of lack of proper audio quality. I gotta have it on today because it's warm. I was already sweating a little bit before the show started. So hey, what's the deal with the show? Doing it live? I did it live yesterday because I was running a little bit short on time, so I just did it live, but I got a lot of feedback from you guys that you seem to say you liked it live, so I thought I would do it live again, and we'll see how it goes. I'm going to ask you guys, and I'm going to ask my Patreon supporter community, what do you guys think about doing it live versus pre-recorded? Now, here's the thing. I struggle between the live and the pre-recorded thing, because the benefits of pre-recorded is that I can sharpen it, I can edit it, it's got a little bit better production value, like the video looks better than it does right now, and I can really craft it. The benefit of the live show, doing it live, is it actually takes a little bit less time. It's a little bit faster for me to do it live, and there's like live interaction. I can take questions from you guys live in the chat board. So there are pros and cons for both, and you know what? I've only been doing my YouTube channel again for about 2.5 months. So I'm still kind of feeling my way around this, what works best for you guys. But anyway, we're here today to talk about stuff going on in the world of entertainment, movies, and television, our favorite storytelling mediums. And here's what we're going to do. I have picked out 6 questions that you guys have sent in to me. Actually, today I picked out 7 because a couple of them are short questions. So I picked out 7 questions today. If you want to know what those 7 questions are, if you want to get a sneak peek, jump into the description of this video and you'll see what the questions are. And how do you get a question to me? It's really simple. Just email me anytime at thejohncampeapodcast@gmail.com. That's all one word. There we go. thejohncampeapodcast@gmail.com. Send on in your questions, and I will pick a couple out every single day, and we're going to get to a bunch of them today. And then I'm going to save a few minutes at the end of the show for those of you guys who are watching this broadcast live. And I'm going to go to the live chat board and get questions from you guys in there to see what you get. So don't start sending in your questions yet if you're watching live, because I'll never see them. They're going to get scrolled way up to the top, so I'll never see them. Send them in later. I'll tell you when to start sending them in. All right, well, with all of that out of the way, let's jump into the stuff. I mean, we got things to talk about here. We got all the drama with the DCEU. What's going on with this stuff? We got James Cameron making comments. We got a whole bunch of stuff. So we're going to get to that. So let's start today's show off with a nice, easy one. Starting off with a question from one of my Patreon supporters, The Canon. The Canon writes, let's talk about the Flash TV series real quick. That is the only CW show I really follow now. I am currently rewatching season 1 and being reminded of how amazing and fresh it was. While on the other hand, I couldn't even stomach rewatching season 3. What has been your feeling through the series so far? Yeah, well, I mean, look, as many of you guys know, I'm actually a big fan of The Flash. And you know what? It's funny because when they announced that they were doing a Flash movie, I was dead set against it. I didn't think this was a character that would translate well onto a television screen. I didn't think that it would mesh well with the Arrow universe that they had set up. I had a lot of question marks about it. And then it came out and I loved it. And you're right, it felt fresh, it felt engaging, it felt fun, really endearing characters. I got connected to the characters pretty much right away. I really enjoy the show. Now, I know that even a lot of the hardcore fans of The Flash were not so thrilled with season 3. I get that. But I have to tell you, I'm not one of them. I actually enjoyed season 3. I quite enjoyed it. There were a couple of episodes that I thought were subpar. There were a few episodes in season 3 that I thought were subpar. But I gotta tell you, overall, well, I'll make them here. I thought Barry was great. I thought The Flash season 3 was actually really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Now, I probably will agree with you that I think season 1 was probably a bit better than season 3 was. But I don't know, you guys jump into the comment section, jump into the chat boards. You guys are here talking amongst yourselves. Hundreds of you there already. Talk amongst yourselves. What did you guys think of Flash season 3? I actually quite enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. All right, let's move on to, oh, and I should let you know, I am going to be doing Flash review shows. So I'm going to be doing a Flash episode review after every episode of The Flash this season. I'm going to be busy around here. I'm probably also going to do it for Arrow. I'm definitely doing it for Supernatural. By the way, if you're not watching Supernatural, go back to season 1. They're going on like season 11 or 12 now, but go back to season 1, start watching Supernatural. I think you'll be glad you did. It's one of my absolute favorite shows on TV. But I'm going to be doing Supernatural, Flash, Arrow. Might be doing Legends of Tomorrow. I'm not really sure about that. Probably do Walking Dead. Probably do a few. Right now, I'm having you guys send me your suggestions in my email. So once again, the johncampia@gmail.com. Send in your suggestions of shows that you think I should cover and that I should do episode reviews for. That would be very helpful. All right. Let's move on to the next question. And the next question comes to us today from another one of my Patreon supporters. And by the way, guys, just, let me pimp this. I'm going to pimp this once an episode, so forgive me, bear with me. But I did, thanks to the suggestions you guys sent me, I did start up a Patreon page. Since I'm now doing this show full-time, I do the John Campea podcast full-time now. And that means I need to be able to earn a living from it. And so I put together a Patreon page. It's at patreon.com/John Campea. I've already got a whole bunch of you guys in there supporting me. It was for you guys who wanted to participate in contributing to making my 70 to like 100 videos a month happen. If you're somebody who appreciates my videos, consider becoming one of my Patreon supporters. If you're unemployed or don't have enough money, don't worry about it. You support me enough just by watching my videos. But hey, if you got like $2 extra a month or $5 extra a month, and I also put up audio-only versions, audio-only podcast versions of the John Campea podcast and of Star Wars Talk Tuesdays for my Patreon supporters as well. So going over to the page, patreon.com/John Campea, check it out there, get more information. And I also make it a priority to get my Patreon supporters questions on the shows as well. So anyway, go check that out if you're interested. Anyway, enough with my self-plugging. We go on to the next question from Daniel Tickner, who writes, I was curious on spoiler etiquette. Well, aren't we all? Screen Junkies came up with a 2-week rule for movies and a 2-day rule for movies. What do you think? Also, what about old movies? Whenever you or anyone gives spoilers of old movies, you seem to get really annoyed. Well, thanks a lot for the question. Spoilers is one of the biggest minefields when it comes to doing movie talk and movie chat and movie punditry of any kind. Because here's the problem with spoilers, okay? This is the big problem with spoilers. There's no real definition for what a spoiler is. If there are 50 people in a room, all 50 people will have 50 different opinions as to what constitutes a spoiler and what doesn't. Like, there are some people, if you give away the big twist at the end of Sixth Sense, and for those of you who've seen Sixth Sense, you know what the big twist is. You give that away, that's the spoiler. But then there are some people who are like, oh, if you say there's a car chase in the movie, you just gave away a spoiler, John. How dare you? It's like, oh, come on. So, but some people consider even saying a minor detail, like in the movie, there's this car chase scene. Spoiler! Like many people say, well, that's not a spoiler. But a lot of people look at it and say, that is a spoiler. Telling you anything at all about a movie, they consider a spoiler. So it makes it really tricky doing movie conversations when everybody has a different opinion as to what a spoiler is and what a spoiler isn't. I have a definition for a spoiler myself, okay? Here's my definition. A spoiler is giving away a piece of information that will directly affect the viewing experience an audience member has as the way the director and the studio intended, okay? Giving away a spoiler is giving away a piece of information that will alter the viewing experience of the audience member as it was intended by the director and the studio. Okay, so like if I told you the big twist in Sixth Sense, that fundamentally alters the way you're going to see the whole movie. If you knew how the Sixth Sense ends, then your experience of the movie will be altered from what the experience the director and the studio wanted you to have, because that twist at the end alters everything, right? So that's my thing. And because it's as the director and the producers and the studio intended, that means, guess what? If they put something in a trailer, it's not a spoiler. By definition, it's not a spoiler. If something is put in a trailer by a director, it's not a spoiler. If something is public knowledge, like, let's say I tell you, hey, guess what? Johnny Depp shows up in, I don't know, what was that recent Harry Potter movie? I can't even remember. Thig Newton and the Sorcerer's Cobblepot. I can't even remember the name of the most recent, Newt Scamander. That was it. Okay, so if I tell you Johnny Depp pops up in, he makes an appearance in the Newt Scamander movie. Well, you can't go, John, that's a spoiler. No, it's public knowledge. They put it on the IMDb page. The studio made that knowledge public knowledge. They put it out freely for the public. If they put it out as public knowledge, it's not a spoiler. But again, it's tricky. So here's my rule, okay? If a movie has been out in theaters, okay, it's done its theatrical run, and then it comes out on home video, either streaming or Blu-ray, and it's been out on streaming or Blu-ray for at least like 1 or 2 months, then it's fair game. To me, at that point, it's fair game to talk about. Because clearly, if it was already in theaters for months and you didn't go see it, and now it's already out on home video and it's been on home video for months and you've never seen it, then I'm sorry, the chances are you're not all that invested in seeing the movie. If it was in theaters and you skipped it, and it's been out on home video already for a while and you skipped it so far, then chances are you're not all that invested in seeing the movie anyway. And at some point, those of us in the fan community, we have to be free to discuss movies. That includes the spoilers. So, I mean, I still won't openly talk about the spoiler in Sixth Sense, because that's a big major one. I won't talk about the spoiler in The Usual Suspects. That's a huge major one. I try to avoid those as much as I can anyway, but at some point, you have to have an agreed upon period of time where it's like, hey, look, dudes, it's been long enough. A movie fan community has to be free to talk about the movies. And if you haven't seen the movie by now, then that's on you. And you're clearly not all that interested in the movie anyway. So, I don't know, but like I said, that's just my definition. A lot of people will have different definitions as to what constitutes a spoiler and what doesn't. So, you got to play around with it, I guess. All right, let's move on to the next question today. And the next question today comes to us from Jai Patel, who writes, with the fast pace of our lives, at the fast pace our lives move now, it seems increasingly likely that movies from 1930 to 1960 will get overlooked by a fair portion of moviegoers. What do you think would be the 3 best movies from Hollywood's golden age to show to someone to encourage them to explore some other movies from that era? My picks would be Casablanca, Psycho, and the greatest of them, in my opinion, It's a Wonderful Life. Well, thanks a lot for the question, Jai. And yeah, a lot of people do not watch enough classic cinema. I mean, like, look, a lot of us will have, hey, Thursday night, sitting at home, I'm going to pop on Netflix, or going to pop on my Amazon Prime, or going to pop on Hulu, or going to pop on whatever else. And they look for contemporary movies. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But I think more people should use those opportunities. Hey, if you got a free Friday night tonight, and you're kicking at home, you're going to watch maybe 2 movies tonight, you're going to order some food with a couple of buddies, go back and get a classic era film. Make one of the movies you watch tonight classic era. Now, you mentioned a couple of great ones. Wonderful Life is great. I mean, obviously, Psycho is great, obviously. The 3 that I usually point to are Spartacus with Michael Douglas's dad, Kirk Douglas. Bridge on the River Kwai with Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's absolutely amazing. And Lawrence of Arabia with Peter O'Toole. Those are the 3 films that if somebody's going to ask me, hey, John, mention a movie from that golden era that I should watch tonight. You cannot go wrong with Spartacus, Bridge on the River Kwai, or Lawrence of Arabia. You cannot go wrong with any of those films. So if you haven't seen any of those films, or any of the ones that Jai mentioned, and you're hanging out tonight and just watching some movies either by yourself or with your significant other or with a couple of buddies, highly encourage you. Make one of those films the films you watch tonight. I think you'll be really glad you did. And I think it'll be a gateway drug for you to getting you hooked on watching a lot of these classic movies that you really should check out. The movies that shaped the movies we have today. These movies, A Wonderful Life, Bridge on the River Kwai, these movies are the ones that shaped the vision and the dreams and the goals of the filmmakers we have today to produce the films we have today. So go check them out. All right, we move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Josh DeRose, who writes, "Hey, John, my question is about possible future Game of Thrones films. We know that HBO is holding the property tight and developing prequel shows. Well, we think they are at any rate. What do you think it would take to get HBO/George R.R. Martin to allow a studio to play within the world of Westeros?" Fair question. And it's an important question because, you know, you can ask the question, why won't a studio make a Game of Thrones movie? Well, you also got to ask the question, what will it take to get George R.R. Martin to give the rights up? And depending on which rights HBO holds themselves, what will it take to get HBO and George R.R. Martin to give up rights to allow a studio to come in and make a movie? Ultimately, you know, there will be a lot of talk about artistic integrity. There'll be a lot of talk about faithfulness to the narrative. There'll be a lot of talk about this. But what it really comes down to is this sound. Beep, 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 beep. That's the sound of a dump truck filled with money backing up to George R.R. Martin's house. They can talk all they want about the artistic integrity of it. They can talk all they want about faithfulness to the narrative. They can talk all they want about all that nonsense. The reality is, and anybody who tells you otherwise is lying to you. The reality is, how many beeps, how many beep, 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 how many of those sounds does the execs at HBO or George R.R. Martin himself hear coming up, backing up to his front door? That will ultimately determine when and how much freedom and all that kind of stuff that they're going to be willing to give a studio to do it. But, you know, then you got to ask the question too, would a studio want to do it? I mean, just because we've seen this proved out 100 times. Just because something's popular TV show does not mean it'll translate to a big screen and people will run out and pay $15 or $10 or $8, whatever, to go see it as a movie. I would be interested. Sure. But then people who watch Game of Thrones, they're used to watching their stories unfold over 8 or 12 or 15 or 20 episodes. Will people who are used to watching Game of Thrones be satisfied in watching a story that is told beginning, middle, and end in 2 hours or 2 hours and 15 minutes? Will they be satisfied? These are the questions that studios would ask themselves. So would people even be bothering to come out to see it? And we can sit back and say, of course they will. Everybody would go see that. It's not the way it works. You know, when World of Warcraft came out, you know how many millions of people in North America play World of Warcraft? And then everybody said, well, you make a World of Warcraft movie, everybody's going to go see it. Everybody who played World of Warcraft is going to go out and see that, son. Like that's, they say everybody's going to go see it. Guess what? They didn't. They didn't. I mean, not even 1/4 of the amount of people who played World of Warcraft in North America went out to go watch the movie Warcraft. I mean, so never make that assumption. Oh, that if you make this, everybody will go see it. Not necessarily. So look, I think there is interest. I think there will be many beeps. Beep, beep. I think there will be many beeps. And I think there will be some interest from some studios to do it, but it's going to have to be the right deal for everybody, and it's going to be a tricky puzzle to solve. How do you tell a Game of Thrones story in a satisfying way that will satisfy the existing fan base of Game of Thrones in such a way that you can tell it in a simple 2 hour and 15-minute movie? If you can solve that puzzle, you'll have a hit, but it's going to be a difficult puzzle to solve. All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. All right, now we move on to the next question today. And the next question today comes off. I'm just going to adjust this a little bit because I realize you guys can't see the question entirely. I'll just hide the... There we go. The next question today comes to us. Sorry, there was no name attached to this one. Okay. Since the initial success of Bug's Life, I think you mean Toy Story, by the way. I don't think Bug's Life was not first. Anyway, There has been an increasing trend of animated films moving towards CGI and 2D films getting phased to the point where they're dead in North America. To me, it seems that movie executives don't have any confidence in 2D animated films anymore, despite the fact that 2D films made outside of North America, such as Your Name, have done really well in Asia and is a quality film. Do you guys see 2D films coming back in the near or far future? Well, thanks a lot for the question. First of all, yeah, quick correction. It's not since Bug's Life. It's that original Toy Story that really started the trend. But here's the thing. It's fine that if in other markets something works, it doesn't mean that just because something works in other markets, that'll work in the North American audience. The North American market likes their animated films CGI in 3D animation. It's been proven. There's data that backs that up. That the North American audience prefers their animated films in 3D animation. That's the way they prefer their films. Studios know that they are more likely to get more people out because the 3D animation is now the standard. That's the standard for animation now in the North American market. Now, here's the thing. You bring up in the question, you know, they make a traditional 2D animated film and it's a good film. Well, a movie being good or not has nothing to do about whether it's 2D animated or 3D animated. A bad 3D animated film would not suddenly magically become a good film if instead of in 3D, it was done in 2D. Instead of in CGI animation, it was done in traditional animation. If it was bad in one form, it will be bad in the other. A bad story is a bad story. Bad character development is bad character development. Whether a movie is drawn in traditional animation or made in CGI will not affect whether the movie is good or not. It will affect about whether or not people are interested in going to see it. And lots of people have a preference on if they prefer seeing traditional animation or they prefer seeing 3D animation. That's all true. But at the end of the day, once they come into the theater, if you do it in a traditionally animated form, but it's a bad script and a bad story and it's not a good movie, they aren't going to suddenly think it's a good movie. It's still a bad movie. So really, the CGI versus traditional medium is not about which one makes better movies. That's irrelevant. It's about what does the audience you're trying to cater to prefer. And it's been proven with data that the vast majority of the North American audience prefers the CG animation. And there's more things you can do with CG animation. We all understand that. But because of that, no. I think there will be every once in a while, for nostalgia's sake, I think you'll see a traditionally animated movie once, maybe every 3 or 4 years, pop up in a wide release North American situation. But honestly, for the most part, I think its time is now done. And I think you're going to see more CG. I think people are going to lean more towards the CG animation stuff. Anyway, thanks a lot for the question, man. Okay, we move on to the next question. And I know people are going to have opinions about this one. Has to do with Wonder Woman and our good friend James Cameron. But here it comes. John McAfee is writing, and he writes, "Hi, John. What do you make of James Cameron's misguided comments on Wonder Woman?" All right. I'm sure most of you have heard about this by now. James Cameron was doing press for the 3D remastered re-release of Terminator 2. One of the great movies of all time, by the way. And one of the people asked him a question about his thoughts on Wonder Woman. Now, it's important to understand here that James Cameron did not just decide, you know what, I'm going to put out a statement, like just out of nowhere decide, you know, he's sitting down, eating his Campbell's soup one day and thought, you know what, I'm going to put out a statement about how I think Wonder Woman set things backwards. He didn't do that. And then he went out of his way to put out this statement. No. He was in an interview environment. Somebody asked him a question, and on the spot, he gave his answer, and he gave his honest answer. Here's what James Cameron had to say. Okay, I'm going to bring this up. He said this. This is James Cameron's words. "All the self-congratulatory back-patting Hollywood's been doing over Wonder Woman has been so misguided. She's an objectified icon. And it's just male Hollywood doing the same old thing. I'm not saying I didn't like the movie, but to me, it's a step backwards. Sarah Connor was not a beauty icon. She was strong. She was troubled. She was a terrible mother, and she earned the respect of the audience through pure grit. And to me, the benefit of characters like Sarah is so obvious. I mean, half the audience is female. Okay, so he was asked a question. He gave his opinion. He thought that, and look, James Cameron, let's not pretend that James Cameron was the only guy to say this. Now, I disagree with James Cameron. I disagree with his assessment. But let's not pretend that James Cameron's the only. We've seen lots of people online echo these same sentiments. That they thought Wonder Woman was kind of a Mary Sue. I hate that term. I shouldn't use it. But Wonder Woman was she was the perfect beauty and the perfect this and the perfect that, and everything about her is perfect, perfect, perfect. A lot of people have made those complaints about it. Again, I'm not saying I agree. I actually disagree with James Cameron's statements. But let's not pretend James Cameron was the first guy to say it. Anyway, Patty Jenkins, the amazing Patty Jenkins, she decided that she wanted to respond. Here's what Patty Jenkins had to say. James Cameron's inability to understand what Wonder Woman is or stands for to women all over the world is unsurprising, as, though he is a great filmmaker, he is not a woman. Strong women are great. His praise of my film Monster and our portrayal of a strong yet damaged woman was so appreciated. But if women have to always be hard, tough, and troubled to be strong, and we aren't free to be multidimensional or celebrate an icon of women everywhere because she is attractive and loving, then we haven't come very far, have we? I believe that women can and should be everything just like male characters should be. There is no right or wrong kind of powerful woman. And the massive female audience who made the film the hit it is can surely judge their own icons of progress. Beautiful response by Patty Jenkins. I don't think she should have made the response. I don't think she should have made a response at all. But she did, and it's a beautiful response. It's beautifully said. Again, though, I think everybody's overreacting. Again, it's important to keep this in mind. This is not a small point. James Cameron was put on the spot and asked a question, and he just gave his opinion. I actually think the way they portrayed Wonder Woman set everything backwards. That's just his opinion, and he gave it. Lots of people gave their opinions that sounded very similar to James Cameron's. We didn't see Patty Jenkins making big public responses to it. So, I mean, I just think it was, look, I think Cameron went overboard with his illustration of the Wonder Woman character. I think he went overboard in his response. But he's entitled to his opinion, and it's fine. I just think he went a little bit overboard. I don't think Patty Jenkins should have made a response to it because it wasn't needed, but she did, and it was beautifully crafted. So I just think everybody's taking this a little bit too far. Hey, some guy was put on the spot and asked about his opinion, and he gave his opinion. He didn't go out of his way to have a press conference to put down Wonder Woman or anything like that. He just gave his opinion because somebody asked him. And he didn't say anything outrageous. I mean, yeah, he gave an unpopular opinion that I also don't happen to agree with. Fine. But I think everybody made too much out of it. Like, what? Is everybody supposed to? Are we now going to have thought police running around? Wait a minute. You didn't like this movie? Yeah, we're going to shit all over you if you didn't like it. It's that type of behavior that I think is bad for film fandom. It's that kind of behavior that I think is bad for the film community. We have to embrace the subjectivity of film. We have to embrace the idea that certain movies will hit certain people certain ways, and it'll hit other people in different ways, positively and negatively. And we need to embrace that and welcome it. The reason I don't think Patty Jenkins should have made a response, and it was a beautiful response, but I think unintentionally what Patty, and I worship Patty Jenkins. You know what I think of Patty Jenkins. I think she's amazing. But what I think Patty Jenkins inadvertently did was promote the mob culture in film fandom that, hey guys, if you ever see somebody say an opinion about a movie you don't agree with, attack them. Attack them. Attack them. That is unhealthy for the movie fan community. It's okay for us to say, hey, James Cameron says this. I disagree with him. I disagree with him because of this, this, and this. I didn't appreciate Patty's response of, well, it's unsurprising that James Cameron didn't get it. That's kind of snooty, I think, to say it that way. And I'm a bigger fan of Patty Jenkins than I am of James Cameron by far. But again, I just think she should have and could have handled that differently. The concept of the mob mentality is unhealthy for the fan community. The mentality of gang up and attack somebody who says an unpopular movie opinion. Remember, we're just talking about movie opinions. We're not talking about race relations in America. We're talking about movie opinions. James Cameron saw the movie. He felt it didn't do service to this, this, and this. And he said that. And it's cool to say, I disagree with James because of this, this, and this. But the idea of organizing mass revolt and attacking somebody who says an opinion about movies, for heaven's sakes, that isn't popular, I just don't find that healthy. I don't think that's healthy for the movie community. It feeds the DC fanboy trolls. It feeds the Marvel fanboy trolls. It feeds the troll mentality. And it just, when you have somebody like Patty Jenkins, as amazing as her, coming out and engaging in that kind of behavior, obviously, and she crafted her statement very well, but again, well, I get why James Cameron didn't understand it. I mean, it's not the right way to approach it, because all you've done now is justify the behavior of Marvel troll fanboys and DC troll fanboys. You just justified it. Because look, the filmmaker themselves are engaging in it and talking like that. So I think James Cameron, I disagree with his opinion. I think he went a little bit too far. I think Patty Jenkins was a beautifully crafted response, but I don't think she should have made that response because it feeds a wrong mentality. And it's just the way I feel about it. This isn't about whether or not I think Wonder Woman was a good movie or not. You see my review, you know I think it's a good movie. It's not about whether or not I agree with James Cameron's comments or not. I've already said 3 times, I don't agree with his comments. I don't. But I also think it's being taken a little bit too far, that if somebody says something negative about a movie we love, we should gang up on them. It's unhealthy. It's bad. It damages the film fan community. So anyway, I know some of you feel different because some people love the idea of being a mob and jumping up and down on people until you're the one that everybody else is jumping up and down on. So I don't know. This whole situation stinks to me. The whole situation stinks. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on this. All right, let's move on now to the final question of the day. And the final question today comes to us from Alex Deasy, who writes, so if Warner Brothers are possibly going to be making standalone films concurrently with the DCEU films, do you think we could see some standalone Batman and Superman movies with a different main actor and director each time? They could do some stories like Batman Beyond and Red Sun, which probably wouldn't be made in the DCEU, as you say, throw open the creative floodgates. Well, thanks a lot for the question, Alex. And this is a great question. Look, I know a lot of people reacted extremely negatively to the news that came out that Warner Brothers is looking at doing a standalone Joker film set in the early 1980s that is outside of the DCEU. Obviously, it wouldn't be Jared Leto's Joker, because Jared Leto's Joker would be 10 years old in the early 1980s. And it would be a standalone, gritty crime drama set in the tone of Taxi Driver. To me, that is nothing but awesome news. I love the idea. I've said this a few times over the last few days. I adore the idea of Warner Brothers stepping outside of their own DCEU shell and bubble and tell some gritty, creative stories where the filmmakers are no longer handcuffed to make sure your movie ties in perfectly with our DCEU. No, fuck that. Give them some creativity to make a couple of movies and do anything you want with it. Just tell a great story. Go. Just make a great movie. Don't worry about it tying into the events of DCEU. You're outside of the DCEU. Go. I love that idea. I think it's brilliant. So anyway, obviously this is something that Warner Brothers is looking at. Does this philosophy, Alex is asking, could this open the doors for something a few people have asked for over the years, which is a Batman Beyond movie and a Superman Red Sun movie. Two great examples of kind of Elseworld storytelling in the DC cinematic universe. I think it's a great idea. Now, look, I'm one of the people, I don't like the idea of a Batman. I think Batman Beyond is silly. That's just my opinion. I think Batman Beyond is silly. As a matter of fact, what's his name? Kevin Conroy himself, the voice of Batman in the animated series, he said it himself. You can look this up. He said Batman Beyond was developed to be a Batman show friendly for kids. It's a silly kids show, Batman Beyond. Whereas Conroy's original Batman animated series was much more mature. Was it kid friendly? Absolutely, it was kid friendly, totally. But it was also a little bit more mature, and I think vastly superior. I mean, Batman Beyond was a show made for children with a child as its hero, 16-year-old Terry McGinnis, so children could relate to him. I see me as an adult, I see no value in it. And I watched a bunch of Batman Beyond because I'm into everything comic book related. And I didn't think it was very good. But that's just my opinion. I know a lot of you guys love it. And that's awesome. I'm not telling you shouldn't love it. I just wasn't that impressed with it. But, well, and, a lot of people say, well, let's get a Batman Beyond movie. Nobody gives a fuck about a Batman Beyond movie. They don't. There's a reason that show got canceled so quickly. And if you ask the average moviegoer, who's Batman? Bruce Wayne. Who's Batman? Bruce Wayne. Who's Batman? Bruce Wayne. Who's Terry McGinnis? Nobody will know. Nobody's interested in a Batman movie that's not Batman. So now I think there's some stretches there you can make. Like I think there's a possibility of them doing Batman where Dick Grayson, who is Robin, because there's natural succession there. I think there's some possibilities there. But I just think, look, you and all your buddies may love the idea of a Batman Beyond movie. You go to a movie theater and interview 1,000 people as they come out of the movie theaters. Who's Terry McGinnis? Maybe 5 of them will know. I mean, that's just it. But, here's the thing. If Warner Brothers is willing to take chances and roll the dice and say, hey, we're going to make this outside of the DCEU Joker movie, why not? Why not take a property like Batman Beyond that clearly does have a fan base? Why not take a property like Batman Beyond and tell an outside of the DCEU story? Because you're not threatening your DCEU. Like, if it works, great. If it doesn't work, okay. It doesn't affect the DCEU because it's an Elseworld story. It sits outside of the DCEU. Why not? There is a segment of the movie-going audience out there, although it's a small one, but there is a segment out there that are interested in a Batman Beyond movie. And if Warner Brothers is willing to enter into a stage where, hey, let's set up a system for ourselves that we can just tell some great creative stories without worrying about the DCEU, why not do a Batman Beyond movie and see if it works? I mean, because maybe I get proved wrong, and that would be awesome. I'm all for success. So I would love it if they did it and I got proved wrong. That would be great. Why not do a Superman Red Sun? Like, for those of you who don't know what... Well, first of all, I'm sure there's a bunch of you who don't even know what Batman Beyond is. Batman Beyond is a story that imagines the world 20 years after Batman retires. Bruce Wayne retires. Now he's an old man. Not like even older than Dark Knight Returns old man. Okay, he's an old man. And he meets this 16-year-old kid, Terry McGinnis, and now, Bruce has developed all this high technology, and Terry McGinnis takes on the Batsuit under the tutelage of an old man, Bruce Wayne, and he becomes the new Batman. It's called Batman Beyond. For those of you who don't know what Red Sun is, I think Red Sun's great, by the way. I think Mark Millar wrote it. I think Mark Millar wrote Red Sun, and it was a 3-issue one-shot story. It's told over 3 issues, where what if, when Superman was launched from Krypton, he actually launched from Krypton like a little bit later than he was supposed to. And instead of his baby capsule landing in Kansas, it landed in the Ukraine. And Superman grew up a child of the USSR. And he stood for the principles of communism. He stood for the principles of equality of all men. He stood for the average working man. He stood for like all good things, just different philosophies from the American way, right? And it's a beautifully told story. It's wonderful. You clearly can't do that in the DCEU. You cannot have a Superman Red Sun in the DCEU. But if you're opening up the floodgates of creativity, and you let some storytellers come in and just tell some one-shot stories that live outside of the DCEU, why not do a Superman Red Sun? Why not do a Batman Beyond? I think, and this is why I was kind of excited when we heard Matt Reeves say that his Batman movie was going to be outside of the DCEU, and then he went back on that and said, no, I didn't mean it like that. I meant it a different way. But I was excited. I was excited to see what Matt Reeves can do with a Batman movie that was outside of the DCEU. I was thrilled with it, to be honest with you. So it's going to be inside the DCEU, and that's still great. But if you're going to do this Joker thing, I think Batman Beyond, and I think Superman Red Sun, let's put it this way. I think it's more possible today that we're at some point going to get a Batman Beyond and a Superman Red Sun movie than it was possible 3 days ago, before we heard about this Martin Scorsese standalone Joker movie. Now that they announced that Joker movie, if it actually happens, but if they move forward with that, I think the chances for a Batman Beyond and Superman Red Sun have just quadrupled. I think the chances that those movies get made are quadrupled. Because as long as it's just the DCEU, you're never going to see a Batman Beyond movie, and you're never going to see a Superman Red Sun movie. As long as they just stick to the DCEU and everything has to happen in the DCEU, you're never, ever, ever going to get a Batman Beyond movie, and you're never, ever going to get a Red Sun movie. If they're expanding the horizons, though, I think it's possible. All right, guys, that's all of the questions that I pre-picked out in advance today. I'm now going to go over to the live chat board and get some questions that you guys have. So go on in, send in your questions for you guys who are watching me live right now, and I will pick a couple out. This is going to be a little bit awkward because I'm going to be trying to read the chat board as I'm doing the show, so bear with me here with a little bit of awkwardness here. ZRJRO says, Armie Hammer for Soviet Union Superman. That would be great. I'm actually a fan of Armie Hammer. I think Armie Hammer's a good actor who's been in some terrible movies, but I think he's a very good actor. And I think him as a Soviet Union, because we saw him as a Russian agent in that tragically underrated, fantastic Man from U.N.C.L.E. movie. So yeah, seeing Armie Hammer as a Soviet Union Superman, I think that would be freaking badass. Let's see, what else we got here? Bill Archer writes, will Justice League have a late review embargo? Ooh. It all depends on if Warner Brothers has faith in the movie or not. If Warner Brothers has faith in the movie, they will show Justice League to critics like 2 weeks in advance and have no embargo. They'll show it 2 weeks in advance and let the embargo lift like 2 weeks or maybe a week and a half out. If the review embargo is like 3 days before the movie comes out, or 2 days or 1 day before the movie comes out, that should be a red flag to you that Warner Brothers doesn't think the movie's any good. Because they knew Wonder Woman was good. And so they lifted the review embargo for Wonder Woman like a week and a half before the movie came out. Because they knew the movie was good. They knew that the critics would like it. They knew that the audience would like it. So they lifted the review embargo. I think it was like a week and a half. It might have been 2 weeks before the movie came out. Anyway, they showed confidence in it. So they know that works. Warner Brothers knows that if your movie's good, it works to let critics talk about it in advance because that gets more people out to the theater. If Warner Brothers doesn't have any faith in the movie, then it's going to be a late review embargo. And then you'll get some DC fanboys that'll go, no, they just have a late review embargo because they know the critics will crap all over it. So, then why did they have an early review embargo for Wonder Woman? Because they knew they had a good movie. And so we're going to have to see. So when you're asking me, will they have a late review embargo? It all depends on if it's good or not. We will know if Warner Brothers thinks the movie's any good when we see how late the review embargo is. If it's a week, week and a half, 2 weeks before the movie comes out, we know that Warner Brothers thinks it's good. If it's less than a week from when the movie comes out, we know that Warner Brothers doesn't think it's any good. So it's just going to be, we're just going to have to wait and see. Let's see here. Well, somebody's saying, hey, do standalone stories, but keep them in continuity with the DCEU. You can't. How do you do a Superman Red Son? Superman in the DCEU landed in Kansas. Superman Red Son, he landed in the Ukraine. You got to pick one. You can't say they're both consistent with the DC. No, you can't do that. You got to pick one or the other. So, yes, that's the way I see it. Martin Lee writes, will Marvel mess up Infinity War? They haven't messed anything up yet. As far as their movie universe goes on a grand scale. I mean, they messed up Jessica Jones. They messed up Iron Fist. They messed up half of Luke Cage. They messed up Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But as far as their movies go, I mean, Winter Soldier was great. Civil War was great. Everything's been really solid and great so far. So will they mess up Infinity War? I doubt it. It's possible. It's totally possible. They're a movie studio. They could mess this up. They've got tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of characters in it. It's possible it gets messed up. But if I had to put money down on anything, I would bet that they do not mess it up. All right. Next one. Zuber Khan writes, the Gambit movie. What happened? Yeah, so here's the thing. Fox had some success. Actually, they've had a lot of success over the years with their X-Men based properties. And they announced, it wasn't just reported, Fox announced they're doing a Gambit movie. Channing Tatum was on as Gambit. They had him at Comic-Con talking about Gambit. And then there were stories about the budget is too high. They don't want to do this. Then there was questions about whether or not Channing Tatum still really wanted to do it. And then a director they had on board left and blah, 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 blah. Some real DCEU stuff was going on with it. And I think the project's dead. I have not heard anything official from anybody, so I'm just speculating here, okay? This is just my thoughts. I think the Gambit movie's dead. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a little disappointed. I know a lot of people were against the idea of a Channing Tatum Gambit. I think Channing Tatum, see Logan Lucky. Tell me Channing Tatum's not a decent actor now. He used to be the worst actor in Hollywood. Channing Tatum was the worst actor in Hollywood who was getting consistent work for a while. But he worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. And it took years and years and years. But he got himself to the point now that, you know what, he's a solid actor. I'm not going to say he's one of the 10 best actors in Hollywood. He's not. But he's a solid actor now. And I actually think he could have pulled off Gambit really well. But as far as what happened to it, I think it's dead. My opinion is I think it's dead. We'll have to wait and see, but I think it's dead. That crazy guy is asking, will you be giving Star Trek Discovery a look? It premieres next month. Nope. Let's put it this way. I think it looks bad. All the chaos and mess I've heard about behind the scenes sounds bad. And I'm not going to sign up for a digital streaming service just to watch one show. I'm not, like, if CBS had this show on CBS, I would check it out. I would at least check it out. But I'm not going to sign up for a digital streaming service just to watch one show that I don't even think looks very good. So look, if the show premieres and then I start hearing from people that I trust that they really like it, I'll give it a shot. But otherwise, no, I'm not going to waste my time on it. It looks bad to me. There's been a lot of chaotic mess behind the scenes. The original showrunner of it thinks it's a mess now. And I'd have to sign up for a digital streaming service that there's nothing else on that digital streaming service that I would want to sign up for. So why would I check it out? Again, I'm going to wait. If a ton of you guys watch it and you start telling me you think it's really good, I'll believe you. I believe you guys if you tell me that it's good. And if it does, then I'll sign up and I'll check it out. But until that happens, no, I'm not going to give it the benefit of the doubt. Mike Thompson is writing, what kind of lighting do you use? Or would you recommend for making YouTube videos and skits? Well, it all depends on what kind of video you're making. Like this video just sitting in front of a webcam, I just have two lights. I don't even have the lights on me because I find it's a little bit harsh. So I have two lights pointed at a white wall. and I use the light that reflects off the white wall to give me lighting here. For other types of videos, like you can see, I have other types of lighting kits here. So I can't give one answer as to what kind of lighting kit would you use. It all depends on the type of video you're shooting, what type of setup, how many people are in it, what's the environment. Like, it really all depends. So I can't really answer that. Sorry, man. Next question. Okay. Jeffrey Dean Morgan for Batman in Flashpoint and Evil Diana, or get the fuck out. Yeah, a lot of people were speculating, because if you saw the animated, if you know anything about Flashpoint, in Flashpoint, and this is just a setup, so I don't think this is a spoiler. In Flashpoint, it turns out Batman that's running around is not Bruce Wayne. It's Bruce Wayne's dad. It's Thomas Wayne is Batman. Instead of it being a Bruce Wayne who was traumatized by the murder of his father, it's Thomas Wayne who was traumatized by the murder of his son. In that reality, in that Flashpoint, Thomas Wayne didn't get shot in that back alley. Bruce Wayne did. The child died. And that, wrecked Thomas Wayne's head, and he becomes Batman. So, I mean, a lot of people have wondered, why do you get an actor the caliber of Jeffrey Dean Morgan to have no lines and just show up in Batman vs. Superman for a 2-minute scene? Is it because they had plans to do Flashpoint and they were going to use Jeffrey Dean Morgan to be Batman? It seems to make sense to me. If you're going to do Flashpoint, now let's keep in mind too, just because they're calling the movie Flashpoint doesn't mean they're going to follow the Flashpoint storyline. You could do anything with Flashpoint. Like, literally, Warner Brothers could do anything with Flashpoint. They don't have to stick to the Flashpoint storyline in the comics or in the animated movie, right? They could do anything they want. So just because Thomas Wayne shows up in the Flashpoint animated and comic, whatever, that doesn't mean they're going to do that here. But if they do, I think it would be smart for them to get Jeffrey Dean Morgan to do it. All right, guys, listen, I didn't mean to. I've already gone past 10 o'clock. Sorry about that. That'll do it for me for this installment of the John Campea podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. Once again, guys, hey, if you watch my videos on a regular basis, consider becoming one of my supporters. Support me on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/JohnCampea to get all the information you want. While you're here, if you haven't done so already, click subscribe. Become a subscriber to my YouTube channel. Share these videos around on Twitter and Facebook and whatever. And make sure you come back throughout the day, because I put up like 2, 3, 4, 5 videos every single day. Come on back and check them out. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. My name is John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.